Thanks for tuning in to The Real Deal Show, brought to you by eBodyboarding.com and Tribe Boards. Well, hey folks, Jay Reale back at you with another episode of The Real Deal Show. Sitting with me is a man who really needs no introduction if you know anything about bodyboarding. He is our current world champion and current world tour leader. This is Tristan Roberts. What's happening, Tristan?
Yeah, legend, brother. Thank you so much for having me. Yeah.
Well, we are here at the 2022 Visit Maldives Pro, and Tristan has been on a tear throughout this entire event, but of course, this will air long after the event is over. Let's just talk about your bodyboarding life going way back, and then we'll get into current action. So you are obviously from South Africa, Onrus.
Yeah.
You lived there all your life.
Yeah, I was born in Cape Town, and then at the age of 7, we moved to Onrus, which is situated in Hermanus. Hermanus is the main city, so it's just a suburb in Hermanus.
Got it.
And we moved close to the ocean then, so that's when I picked up a bodyboard and started getting into it.
Yeah, so how did you pick up bodyboarding? Was your family into it, or friends?
So my brother, he's about 8 years older than me, and he was bodyboarding and got into it with all the guys around there, and I was kind of just dragged down to the beach with him, and kind of like my mom was like, yeah, just look after Tristan and take him down to the beach with you, and so then I started seeing them getting into it, and then
Did you do other sports as well?
Yeah, throughout my whole school career, I played every sport I could. I even did motocross for a while, until I had an accident and I came home and Mom sold all my gear. You're done with the sport, and I played a lot of rugby in South Africa up until I was 18 years old. I really liked rugby and cricket and athletics. So.
Well, when did you learn? Obviously, you're an athlete, but when did you learn that bodyboarding was something you were really good at? Or was it early on?
Yeah, I guess it was early on, because I started when I was about 7, 8 years old, and at about 10 years old I was competing, doing boys under 12.
Wow.
Did boys under 12. I think it was only around for 1 year, and then there was no more boys under 12 division.
Wow.
And then I started motocross, stopped bodyboarding for about a year. Loved that until I had the accident.
Yeah, well, tell me about the accident. You break anything?
No, I just kind of, it was actually after training. I came back and I cleaned my bike and I took it around the block to just to get rid of the water in the exhaust and everything, and I was kind of like, didn't have a helmet on, like no shoes, kind of just cruising around the block. And come around a blind corner, and there was they were doing construction work, and they had like put all these big boulders in the road, and I just kind of like hit a rock and fell and like knocked myself out.
Oh my god!
And then my foot was actually stuck in between the chain.
Whoa!
So it was like the chain was like digging into my foot a bit, and just got really scratched up. And
so you're doing all this gnarly riding out in the dirt.
Exactly.
And you get hurt just cruising around the block to get the water out of the
when
motor.
you're like kind of least expected. Yeah. But it's like that in all sports, I reckon, like bodyboarding and everything. It's like when it's 1 to 2 foot,
that's when you get hurt.
Yeah.
Because your guard is down.
Exactly, yeah.
Right? So that's when the bad stuff happens.
Yeah.
So, all right, so you're a young kid, you're into bodyboarding, you're competing, you're starting to do well.
Yeah.
Did you go to the SA Championships?
Yeah, so I went to SA Champs. I think my first year was 2009. And I was competing under boys under 15, but I was 12 at the time. And it was, the waves were pumping, and I was like so small I could hardly make the paddle out in the semi-finals. I made it to the semi-finals, and then it just got too big for me, and I was like just getting blown up and got eliminated in the semi-finals. And then it took me till 2011 to win my first boys under 15 title. And then 2012 I won boys under 15 and the open division. So like then that was like I did 1 year after that, my first year juniors. I won juniors and came second in the pro division, and then I didn't do nationals after that. Like kind of just started competing on the tour and doing the odd events in my time, and that I had off school because I still had school to do. So in my school holidays, I kind of just did the events that overlapped with my school holidays up until when I was 18 and finished school, and then kind of moved on to tour full time when I was finished school at 18.
Did you know, like from an early age, this is what I want to do? I want to get paid to bodyboard and travel the world.
I guess like from 2012 when I went to the ISA, and then I went to Fronton for the first time, and Pride hooked me up and started sponsoring me. I was kind of like had my foot in the door, and had Jared there too, who actually signed at the brand recently afterwards, and kind of paved the way for me a bit. And I was just frothing, bro. Like from that time, I was just so eager to keep pushing myself, and always comparing myself to the guys that are my age around the world, like watching YouTube videos, trying to see where my level's at. And so I guess I was always bitten by the bug and always into it. So
yeah, what's interesting is that you and Tanner have really similar stories. You know, you guys were dominating competition at very young ages against guys much older than you.
Yeah.
And you kind of around the same age, really. You're just maybe 1 year older than Tanner, right?
Yeah, so I guess it's just the athleticism. Like, I think he was really good at gymnastics before, so it's kind of like, yeah, if you've got that side to you, then you tend to catch things a bit quicker, I guess.
Yeah, translates to bodyboarding for sure. Air awareness.
Yeah.
Whether it be jumping on a motorbike over massive dirt jumps, or in Tanner's case, gymnastics, all of that translates well to bodyboarding, not to mention the impact that your body takes. Have you had some bad injuries in bodyboarding over the years?
I've actually, I fractured a rib of mine 2 years ago, and really did a lot of damage to the cartilage.
Was this landing one of your signature backflips?
Yeah, actually, and it was coming out of quarantine, actually. It was like, so it might have been, it was just after this COVID situation, like kind of locked down in Portugal, not doing much, like kind of got lazy on training, just kind of cruising, and then flew back to South Africa, had to do 2 weeks in a hotel there in quarantine, like driving myself mental, like watching all these bodyboarding videos, like super eager to get out of there.
Wow.
Like got released from the hotel, and then the waves are like pumping for 3 days straight. It's kind of like maybe my body was a bit soft after just sitting around and like not really doing much, and by the time day 3 came and I was kind of a bit sore, the waves are so good, I was still like kind of sending it, and just felt like on one backflip like a really sharp pain in my ribs. I was like, oh, that's doesn't feel good. So I didn't actually break the rib, but I fractured the bone, but the cartilage is what's been annoying me since, because just like the cartilage is kind of loose now, and it pops all the time. Like every time I'm pushing it, it's like popping, and
you can feel it still.
Yeah, I actually followed quite a lot at this event with no wetsuit, because normally I use a wetsuit, so there's a bit of a protective layer.
Yep.
But now that it's like straight on the bodyboard and it rubs a bit, like it does get a bit inflamed and whatever, but it's not crucial pain. It's just like I know it's there, you know. And I've tested it through a lot. Like if it was gonna break, it would have broken today and the other days.
You had one wave today. You just did a backflip. You landed so hard and bounced so hard.
Yeah.
And I was actually doing the commentary. I actually mentioned the impact that your bodies take when you land those kind of maneuvers, and how strong your core has to be. So, do you do any training? Other than bodyboarding? Yeah,
so I've actually have a biokinetics trainer at the moment, Nelia Harding, and I have a physiotherapist at home that I work a lot with, and I've always loved training. I think like since I was young, in any sport I did in my off time, I liked running and doing my thing. So, but yeah, they've actually recognized a few areas in the beginning of last year, like what could go wrong, like maybe in the future, and they're trying to just backtrack me a bit and realign my body and strengthen me in that position. So it's been really interesting. I've learned a lot, because before that I kind of just trained on my own, you know, like doing the push-ups, the pull-ups at home, thinking like, yeah, that's sweet, I'm training and running and I'm all good, you know. But once you go to them and you realize like your form on push-ups and pull-ups have been wrong your whole life, and they readjust everything and trying to, so yeah, it's been a big learning curve for me, and something that I'm really excited to look forward to, like learning more and continue to push myself. And I think it's only now that the level of the sport is like rising so much, and guys are just going all broke, that like kids, hopefully they realize early on in their career that the outside water is of training is really important, and it's better to do it before you get hurt, you know, like preparation is better than rehab, you know. So
for sure,
I think once you have to start going into rehab for injuries, that's where problems come along. So it's better to stay prepared and stay ready. Like Moz, absolute animal. I don't think he's had many injuries in his life, you know.
Yep.
He's just built physically just like, you know, like a robot. And
Yeah.
so yeah, I think he's a great example to all of us growing up.
Yeah.
And something that I always, you know, look to Moz at and set an example.
Well, it's interesting because, you know, back in my day, guys weren't doing the kind of maneuvers that you guys are doing.
Yeah.
And then now I'm almost 60 years old. Mike Stewart's a little older than me, and we're still, I mean, I'm not surfing anywhere near the level you guys do, but the point is the longevity has to stay. And now, because what you guys do in the water, you have to train to maintain that fitness so that you can bodyboard when you're 58, 60 years old.
Yeah.
And, you know, keep it as a life sport, as it were.
For sure. I don't even know if I'm going to be able to do that.
Yeah.
Like I don't know how long our careers are going to be. You know, for guys like Tanner and I, that kind of like from the new generation have been pushing ourselves so hard for so long. It's kind of like, feel like we'll be the benchmark to see exactly what needs to be done in preparation in order to create that longevity.
To not have broken bodies.
So yeah, that's kind of like one of my main focuses. I really enjoy the training and trying to build on that longevity at the moment.
So moving forward with your world title hopes, right now you're reigning world champ, you're going for the second world title. In this event, you and Tanner both got knocked out at the same spot, so it's still even Steven as far as his deficit behind you.
Yeah.
What's it going to come down to determine who's going to win that world title at the end of this year?
Yeah, so according to my calculations,
there's math involved.
Yeah, so what it's all going to come down to is Tanner has to win a 2,500. If he wins a 2,500, he's going to jump into first spot. So it's South Africa left and Sintra left. So he has to win one of those two, or he needs to come second at Fronton or better.
Wow.
So that's just Tanner, but there's other guys like Moz now. If he wins this event, he has a win in Reale, he could win Sintra and win Fronton, and he wins the world title. You know, there's Alan Munoz who wasn't at this event, but he'll probably go to South Africa and Sintra. If he wins one of those and he goes into Fronton and wins Fronton, like, you know, he's also in the shot. So
jeez, I think a lot of what ifs.
There is a big, you know, there's a big pool of guys that can still do it.
Yep.
It's probably Tanner, Alan, Moz, and I, from my calculations. Don't get me wrong. And yeah, I think anything's possible. You know, in 2019 when I won the world title, I had to win Fronton, and Pierre had to lose before quarters. And you know, Pierre's known to be in at least semis at Fronton, and so that was a real long shot. So doing that is kind of like, now I never count my chickens before they hatch, because anything can happen.
There's a lot of variables.
So many, and for me it's just kind of this. I've had 5 consecutive podiums. I'm super stoked with my performance so far this year, and I just hope to keep that momentum on, you know. And I love going to Fronton, and my goal is just to put on a big performance there, and if I can do that, then I'm happy with this year. Okay,
so switching off the competitive topic and moving to free surfing, do you prefer going on a surf trip or competing, or do you just like both equally, just different?
Yeah, so that's the thing. Like I was saying earlier this year to my girlfriend, like I don't know how guys chase 5 world titles, because the stress is just so heavy, like so much on you. And then I went home and I was like off for a month and kind of itching to surf a heat again. So I was like, okay, that's how they do it. You know, it's super addictive to come back and start fighting. So I think it's the balance. You know, I love going on a free surf trip, and even better if there's no cameras. You know, like if it's for me, like after an event like this, all I want to do now is just go home and surf and not chase footage, and just like switch off and like go on a trip with the boys and just surf. You know, I don't want any camera in sight, because that's when that stuff starts coming back and you're trying to perform for a camera. And the best like surfs I've had this year has been when there's no cameras around and just cruising, you know, like super happy with my friends, and just, you know, we're still pushing each other but having a laugh in between, and you know, not really focused on trying to do whatever the biggest punts all the time and playing around with bodyboarding. And you know, that's kind of what got us into the sport in the beginning, was going on surf trips with friends. You know, that was addictive. So 2 questions for you. Do you ever get scared out in the surf? For sure you get scared. I think there, especially at like Fronton or at Reale or something, you can kind of sense it in amongst all the athletes.
Yeah.
Like there's always that fear, and no one's gonna say it, but it's like you can sense the vibe
Sure.
in the morning.
Yep.
And yeah, it's kind of just to, like in a free surf you have the option, you know, like, but I kind of always push myself because I know that's going to come down, like in a heat at some point, it's going to be big and scary and you still need to perform. So
Of course.
in a heat it kind of switches off. The fear thing just kind of goes out the window, and I'm just like, oh well, am I they coming in with a good result or stitches? Like don't really care. Like you know, that especially at front on, that's kind of like the mentality you got to go into when it's big. It's just put your body on the line and hope for the best. I don't really
So heavy.
kind of switch that off completely, you know.
Love watching you guys out there. My second question is, what's your favorite surf trip that you've ever been on?
Well, that is a tough question, but I did do front on. I did Canaries straight out of school, like in the off season from like January, February. Spent 2 months there, like surfing front on, like straight out of school, just super grom. Like
Wow.
spent 2 months there just surfing, you know, a lot and meeting all the boys, and that's kind of what I started pushing myself even more, because I was, you know, pushed into big front on with local guys that
Right.
were pushing it, and I think that's definitely one that'll be installed in my memory forever, like where it's just pushed my riding a lot and made me grow a lot. I surfed like humping front on with just Moz and I out, like one day, like I'll never forget, it was like onshore and then it started raining a lot. And Moz like messaged me like, hey, do you think like the wind died after the rain? And like we went to go check the surf, and it was like just like 6 to 8 feet, perfection, like rushed out there. It was like, and I remember it was like this crazy rainbow too, like after the rain, like, you know, I have this crazy memory, and it was just trading waves. Like it wasn't long, it was maybe like an hour and a half, but the session was just like
Magic.
yeah, for me at that time I was like, I'm sharing pumping front on with like the man out here, you know, like
That's sick.
so that was really cool. But yeah, I've had plenty like trips where it's just in the desert in South Africa with friends that have just also been in, you know, installed in my memory for so long. And
Where have
always
you
so
not
special.
been that you want to go?
I guess I'd really want to spend a lot of time in Indo. I've been there for a trip, and I just like to go there and free surf and cruise around, and you know, but it really clashes with the dates for tour. Same with Australia. I'm itching to go and spend time in Australia and chase the slabs there with all those crazy guys, and you know, push myself amongst the Aussies. So those are two next destinations on my bucket list that I'm like really wanting to spend more time at, and looking for any opportunity that I can go there.
This guy loves the heavy stuff. You know, you get older, you kind of don't want the heavy stuff. At least me, I want easier, little bit easier waves, not the crazy, gnarly, giant frontone and other slabs that these guys chase. It's so fun to watch you guys. I'm going to give you one more chance here. Actually, I haven't given you a chance yet, but let's do a shout out to your sponsors.
Yeah, but like my main sponsor, Pride, and we've actually got my pro model is called the Realist.
Yep.
And
we sell it.
So
at ebodyboarding.com.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So yeah, they've been helping me since I was a kid, you know, since I was 15 years old. So massive shout out to them. And yeah, it's just like without them, like my career would be a lot less than what it is at the moment.
Sponsor.
Yeah, it's like, so everything I've got through life is come through bodyboarding, and I'm really grateful for the companies that do support me, and you know, Red Bull in South Africa and African Canamed, which is a CBD company in South Africa, have really helped me in the last few years. And yeah, just shout out to all those boys. I really appreciate the support.
Right on. So Tristan, thanks, man. I appreciate your time.
Legend, thank you.
This is current world champion Tristan Roberts, gunning for his second world title. We will see at the end of the year if he can pull it off. But even if he doesn't, he's a killer, super cool guy. I like him. So he's a champion in my book, no matter what.
Legend, thank you, brother.
So that'll do it for this episode of The Real Deal Show, folks. Hope you enjoyed it. If you did, give us the thumbs up, subscribe to our YouTube channel. If you listen on the podcast, hope you enjoyed it. Folks, we'll see you next time, and we'll see you in the surf.